Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amy Prokopis. I am a young adult author. My most recent book is The Arena, which is a dystopian book for young adults. I do have another project coming out in the fall, which is an urban fantasy. So, fantasy supernatural book set in today's world. So, that's me. Thank you for joining me and welcome to my channel if you're new. So today's video is not really a new one. I made this video kind of on a whim last summer. So last summer was when I had decided I was going to self-publish The Arena. And when I announced it, immediately people started asking me all kinds of questions. And one of the questions I got most often was, how do you write books? What's your process look like? So I only posted one video and I explained how I outline my books, and I put that on Instagram Live. It is still there on my Instagram. If you want to check it out, you can follow my Instagram here. That's where I post most of my bookish updates and where I'm most active. So you can find that there. But I'm going to do kind of an update to that because things have changed just a little bit. I still use the same method, but I thought I would show you. So here in a minute, I'm gonna pop over here to my bubble and give you guys a view of my computer so you can see all the steps and what they look like for me. So that's what we're going to do, and that's what today's video is about. I will probably make more of these as far as how my writing process works. So right now, I am in the process of reading through my first draft of that book that will be out in the fall. So, in maybe another week or so, I'll show you what the editing process looks like. But this is everything before that. So this is how I come up with ideas and how I structure the book. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. So this is amyprokopis.com. This is my website. It opens up first to this About Me page. And this morning, I posted my outlining process to my blog. So here it is. Here's also where I post updates about my new book, which is coming in the fall. Like I said, it's urban fantasy. Right now, the only thing I've released is just a little glimpse at what that book is about. So you can click on that and learn more about that. But for today, we are talking about this 7-point plot structure. So I'm going to open that up just so you can take a look at sort of this graphic. So my process, I have it all bullet pointed in there. There's 3 steps that I take before I actually start writing a book. And that's all that preliminary plotting process for me. I am a pantser, which means that I kind of write on the fly. I don't like to outline a ton. And I've learned, especially through publishing my first book, The Arena, I've learned that if I at least plot out a little bit, it makes the editing process go a whole lot faster for me. So I now plot a little more than I used to. And I found that the 7-point plot structure, which is this piece right in front of you, I found that that is the easiest way for me to do it. It's actually pretty detailed for somebody that likes to write on the fly. So the process for me, the first step, of course, is that the idea comes to me. I get ideas from a lot of things. Usually I get the characters first and I develop the people, and then I get a feeling for like the environment they might be in, and then the plot comes usually after. That's typically how I develop my idea. That'll live in my brain for usually at least a few weeks. Usually, well, at the least it's a few weeks, but typically it's a month or two that these people live in my brain. And then from there, it grows. So the next thing I do is I storyboard, which for me is usually saving pictures I find online or taking pictures of inspo myself, and I put them in a photo album on my phone. That way it's sort of in a collage for me. I can pull them as I need them, just to get a better picture of these people, the place that they're living, and from there scenes start to grow, and I'll include images that represent those scenes, for instance, and then I come over here to the 7-point plot structure. So this is the entire outline of what that looks like. I have the book title up here. Plot number one, or point number one, is the hook, which is setting the scene, characters, their motivations. So all of that preliminary work that I did goes here in the hook. So it's so-and-so, they are living here. This is what, launch point. This is what launches the entire book. Plot turn number one, that's the second piece. So plot turn number one is also called the inciting incident. So that is the one event that takes off for the whole book. So that is the very first of the main plot. So usually it's like, oh, so-and-so is running for student council, but their crush is also running for student council. That could be inciting incident or plot turn number one. The third point is pinch point one. I like that they call it pinch point. Usually this is sort of included in that first plot element, but pinch point one is an external conflict that introduces the bad guy or the antagonist. I really like that this is here because it helps me better get an idea for the subplot of the villain. Midpoint is the fourth piece. So of course it's like in the middle of the 7-point plot structure. Midpoint is just the major event that changes the whole strategy of the book. So it changes the plot. So from here, everything after is different than what was originally planned. That's what the midpoint is. Characters go from reaction to like taking action. I think that's a really good way to sum that up. You want to give your main character some volition. So that's in there. That definitely sums that up. Then there's pinch point number two, which is where the major plot takes a turn for the worst. Everything seems lost. So everything seems lost for pinch point two. Then there's plot turn number two, which is where the protagonist, your main character, discovers something that's going to help solve it all. So this is where you start to wrap up the plot of the book. And then, of course, there's the resolution. The main conflict is resolved. Everything is fixed. And this is where you bring in any loose ends, or you make sure to bring them back around because maybe you're going to have a sequel. If there's a sequel, you want to make sure that everything is in connection. It also is really good for building buzz that there will be a sequel. It gets your reader interested to go and reach for that next book. That way it's in their mind rather than if it was just a standalone. If it was just a standalone, then you might bring it all together from here. So that is the outline, the basics for the 7-point plot structure. So usually I'll have this in a Google Doc and I'll fill out like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll just go through and fill in all my pieces. But sometimes that gets a little bit long on a Google Doc, and it gets to a point where you are like searching through things to really find all the details. So with this book, I've incorporated a Google Slides. So here's my Google Slides. This is just really basic. In-depth notes, and I did this so that it's easier for me to organize those steps, but still get all of the same details. So I have the overview here. I fill out all of these pieces I call it in a nutshell. So here's the basics. Then from there, I come over and I get the hook. I make sure to include that in a nutshell up here. And then in the notes, just like it says down here, I include notes for main plot, subplots, and any other relevant notes like by chapter. So that might even, at the end before I just start writing, that might even include incorporating like chapter 1. Here's what happens in chapter 1. Insert scene here. That might be some basics to what would be for the hook. And I have a slide for every single plot point. That way I've got it all fleshed out and it's easy to keep track of your subplots. So if your main overarching plot, just like I kind of used that example about girl wants to run for student council. Oh, oops, but her crush is also running, so now they have to be enemies. but she still has secret feelings for him. This is where you would incorporate some of those subplots. Like your main plot might be that like enemies to lovers overview, but maybe the subplot is that like her friend, like maybe the subplot is that her friend also has feelings for him, or even worse, maybe her friend is dating him the whole time, and so you need to keep track of the relationship. So this would be where you could keep track of it. So with each point, you could make a note, like this is what's happening with this subplot right now. That way you don't lose track of it, because oh my gosh, that is a mess to go back and find later. So that's where I do that. And then of course there's the resolution. Just like I said, make sure you're adding notes about the subplots. That way you can bring them back around and include them, because I know like everyone on the internet, especially like, to use an example, I know everyone on the internet was going crazy about the subplots that never went anywhere in like Game of Thrones. You do not want the subplot in your book to become that kind of a scenario. So make sure that you are rounding them up here, include any loose ends, or at least mention them so that your reader knows that, oh, this is going to go somewhere in book 2. So that's what I've been working on, and that's what I use to start plotting out my books. And of course, after this step, I start writing it. So for me, since I'm a pantser, I don't get all the details in this before I start writing. Typically, I am doing a better job of that. Usually I'll get this first slide done, for instance, and then I start writing. I don't get all those itty bitty details done. I insert them as I go. So that's where the pantser in me comes in. But that's pretty much my process, guys. So thanks for coming along with that, I guess. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. I explained that, like I said, in Instagram Live last summer, but it is a little bit different now because I've recently incorporated those Google slides that I showed you. I've found that they're really helpful. So maybe they could be helpful to you in your process also. So that's my favorite thing about writing, is there's really no wrong way to go about doing it, but everybody does do it a little bit differently. So I enjoy talking with other writers and aspiring authors to see what they found works for them, because it really is like a trial and error kind of a thing. So if you thought this was super helpful, give it a like down below. Make sure to subscribe and leave me a comment with other suggestions. So how do you outline your stories? Or maybe you outline similar to me. Maybe you use note cards. That's another thing people use rather than those Google slides. Let me know in the comments. And if you want, reach out to me on my social media. That's included in the description below. Also, I love hearing from other bookworms, love talking about books, not just my books, but books in general. So thanks for joining me today, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.